So I went to go see the movie Longlegs yesterday. And like a lot of people, I found myself swept up in a lot of the hype. There was a lot of people saying it was the scariest movie of the decade or scariest movie in years, and so on and so forth. Now, I've been a fan of Oz Perkins, the director and the writer of Longlegs, for a couple years now. I first saw his movie The Blackcoat's Daughter a couple years ago, and I really recommend that film. So when I saw that he was coming out with another one this summer, I was really excited. I wanted to see what his next feature was going to be, and the trailers looked really good and everything. So I was excited naturally on my own. And then, of course, there came this whole hype tidal wave afterward of people saying that it was the scariest movie ever. And I don't think I would call it the scariest film ever. I would say, though, that it's one of the creepiest. And it's a film that has a lot of dread. Perkins is very good at staging. He's very good with sound effects and a lot of subtlety and nuance in a scene. He knows how to set up a scene properly and then let it build. And you have anticipation and you have that suspense that carries over a scene and everything. He's very good with that. And the film does extremely well on that front. It's very creepy. It's disturbing. There aren't really any genuine, like, traditional scares to it, like what you would see in something like Smile or like The Conjuring. You know, a movie like a typical studio horror film where there needs to be a jump scare or some type of, moment every like 5 to 10 minutes or whatever. It's not a film like that. It's a film where Perkins really takes his time in setting up a scene and really like taking you through a segment. And sometimes segments don't always go where you expect. I mean, it doesn't always end in a jump scare or something that's satisfying in a sense of watching a horror movie. Sometimes it just kind of leads to the next scene or whatever, or it just leads to a mystery. So as far as the direction and like the technical craftsmanship of the film, I thought it was really, really good. The acting is, of course, really good as well. I think Maika Monroe, who, of course, was in It Follows, is a phenomenal actress. I think she's good in just about everything. I first saw her in It Follows, which came out almost 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. And she was really good in that. And she's really good in this as well. And, of course, Nicolas Cage, who plays the villain, Longlegs, the villain. He's under a lot of makeup and everything, and, at a passing glance, maybe you wouldn't know that it was him, but it becomes apparent that it's him pretty quick, just a few minutes into, some of the scenes that we see him. And Cage is, he has a lot of energy on scene, obviously. I mean, he's become sort of a meme, but I think in this particular case, his manic energy, when it's properly contained and it's properly focused in something, is usually very good, and I think in this film it's very good. Longlegs, the villain, is pretty good as a horror movie villain. He's pretty distinct. I mean, you're not going to forget about seeing him. I don't know that he's necessarily like an iconic villain in the same sense as like a Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers. I mean, he's not anywhere close to that. He's not like Hannibal Lecter or something like that. But he's a good, memorable villain. And this is the type of film that you watch and like you'll come away thinking about. There's a lot of clues that are left in it. There's a lot of subtlety. I mean, this is the type of film you want to watch again and again. You'll probably pick up on a lot of things in repeat viewings. I think at some point I will check it out again, but probably when it releases on stream versus going to the theater. Although, this is actually a good film to see in the theater as well. I'm glad that I went. I don't go to a lot of movies in the theater anymore unless it's like a big event movie and I really, really want to see it. But for this one, I made an exception, and I'm glad that I did. I would check it out in a theater if you can, but it's also something that I would totally understand if somebody wanted to wait to see it on streaming, because I almost did that myself. I live far away from a lot of theaters, or from a theater that was playing this, so I had to kind of drive out of my way to go see this movie. But in the end, I think it was worth it. I'm glad that I did. Um, so as far as atmospherics go, as far as like the technical side of the film, I thought it was very good. I think if there's shortcomings to Longlegs, it probably is with the plotting and I would say the overall story. If I had to describe it, I would say that it's sort of like Silence of the Lambs meets the X-Files. In fact, that's really what the movie comes across as, like a very well done episode of an X-Files show or something. Like if they were given like a really big budget and they had a really good director do one of the episodes, you would get something like this. So it was kind of a cross between the two, and it sort of has the vibes of Silence of the Lambs. I mean, it doesn't have the character density, and it doesn't have like the narrative weight that Silence of the Lambs did. But then again, that was based on a best-selling book, and it has an iconic villain in Hannibal Lecter in it. But another thing I would say that was a weakness was, and this is nothing against Monroe's acting or anything. She did it perfectly in the film, I thought. But her character, Harkins, I think is her name, the FBI agent. It's not really clear why her personality is the way that she is. She comes across as very stiff and I would almost say borderline autistic, and I'm wondering if that's what the intention was. It's mentioned that she's psychic or that she's half psychic or something. She seems to have some type of quality about her that's different, and it makes her unique. But she's very closed off from the world. She only talks to her mom. There's no love interest. I mean, she's barely even able to open up to her boss. Her boss invites her over to his house where she meets his daughter and everything. And she's really almost antisocial. It's very hard for her to like open up and everything. And none of that was, I guess, really explained, which unless you want to count like the end twist, which I won't get into here. The reason I bring it up though is because I think for a movie like this, it would have been a little bit better if her character had been a little more plain and a little more Clarice Starling-esque, if you will. Not exactly like her, but it would have been, I think it would have been better if she'd been sort of like innocent and she'd been like a normal everyday person who suddenly thrust into this like overwhelming terror and this overwhelming evil that she has to confront. But probably that wasn't possible because of the ending of the movie and the twist and everything that comes in there. And I would say that it was satisfying. I did like it overall. It was slightly predictable. I mean, I could kind of see where it was going about midway through the story. But the movie really makes up for it with its directing, with its atmospherics, and with its pacing, and like the sound effects and everything, and like the nuance of every scene. I really enjoyed it for that purpose. I would say overall, though, if I were to give if on a 5-star rating, I would probably give it like maybe 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's really rare that you see a horror movie that has this level of craft in it. Where you can really go back and you can really enjoy like the way scenes are shot, the way they're composed, and you can kind of let yourself seep into it. And I would say that The Shining is probably a good comparison for it, in the sense that I mean, The Shining doesn't really have a lot of like obvious scare moments in it. It has a lot of gradual building tension moments that lead up to something, and that's kind of the way Longlegs is. I would recommend going to see it in the theater, or if you want to wait for it on stream, that's fine too. But in any event, go check out Longlegs. It's a pretty good film. It's a pretty good horror film. I don't know that I would call it the best of the decade. I mean, that remains to be seen. But it is worthwhile, and I would go check it out.